You ever come home at dusk and hear something so raw it makes you stop in your tracks? That's what happened one evening. My Tesla glided into my Beverly Hills garage, the evening heat still clinging to the concrete, when something hit me, sobbing so desperate, so full of loss that I felt it in my bones. It wasn't the kind of crying a kid makes when they scrape a knee or lose a toy. It was bigger, deeper. It was injustice screaming. I paused, listening. It was coming from the laundry room. I left the car idling, ran toward the sound. There he was, 8-year-old Tyler, Patricia's son, our housekeeper's boy, on his knees on the cold floor. Scraps of trash and torn plastic bags strewn around him. His uniform was stained, sleeves grimy, hands rummaging wildly through garbage, tossing paper after paper, and those tears, hot, wet streaks down his cheeks, his little body shivering, his back bowed under the weight of something too heavy for his age. I knelt beside him, my heart lodged in my throat. "Tyler, what are you doing here?" My voice felt strange, shaky, unfamiliar. He lifted his face. His eyes were swollen, red, and when he saw me, his tears tried to hide behind confusion. He touched his forehead, rubbed the grime away, tried to steady himself. "Mr. Hamilton," he whispered, voice trembling. "They threw it away. They said it was trash. But it isn't trash. I need to find it before the truck comes and takes it all away forever." I could almost feel the desperation, like chilly fingers gripping around hope. I asked him what it was. What did they throw away? He wiped his nose with the back of his dirty sleeve, then said it so quietly I had to lean close. "My science fair project and pictures of Mum when she was little." His words broke something in me. Pictures that captured love. A project they built together. They said it was worthless junk, but it's not. Mum helped me all week. He bowed his head, peered at a crumpled paper. "Please, Mr. Hamilton, I need it." My chest tightened. I wanted to gather him in my arms, shield him from this wound adults had inflicted. Patricia's voice called from the garden, sharp with worry. "Tyler Washington, what are you doing out here?" She came in fast, uniform clean, face drawn with worry and shame. Tyler collapsed into her arms, sobbing. "The principal," she threw away his solar energy project, the one we made together, with bottles and small panels. She said in front of class that it's slum work. His voice cracked, each word slicing the air. Patricia hugged him, sway slightly, tried to still the tremor in his tiny frame. My blood felt ice cold in my veins. Who was allowed to call a child's work slum work? Who told him dreams like his didn't belong? I felt ashamed. I'd always prided myself on fairness. I thought I had empathy. That privilege made me generous. But in that moment, I realized how blind I'd been. How darkness can lie in plain sight, and injustice whisper behind polished walls. I asked Patricia quietly, gently, "Tell me everything." She looked up at me, her eyes tired, but bright with worry, anger, despair. She told me what had been brewing for a while, remarks made in passing, expectations lowered, projects dismissed. Like that day when Principal Coleman pulled Tyler aside and said he should focus on practical options, jobs like gardening, cleaning, the kind of work people in their neighborhood really do, and stop dreaming of things adults in glass offices do. Patricia said she'd held back tears, that Tyler came home confused, ashamed. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, to keep him in private school because she believed exposure to opportunity mattered. But what good was privilege if people constantly told you it didn't belong to you? I asked to see his work. She pulled out a folder. Curled edges, handwritten charts, dried glue, wires, solar cells, cobbled from spare memorabilia, beautiful in a ragged, miraculous way. Volcanoes that spewed baking soda lava, circuits that lit up in miniature, diagrams so detailed you could feel Tyler's excitement. Renewables, solar energy, experiments made from recycled bottles and glittering with possibility. And there among them, pictures of Patricia when she was young, her laughter frozen in photographs, her pride in her child's work. I sat there dumbfounded. Every project was more impressive than many professional exhibits I'd seen, and all this supposed trash materials she'd denigrated. They worked. They argued with ingenuity. They were fuel. Tyler wasn't just following instructions. He dreamed in experiments, built hope with his hands. He told me he wanted to invent, to build a future for people who struggled, to bring light to homes in neighborhoods like ours. I felt that urgent shake. Dreams aren't optional. For some, they are everything. I couldn't pretend ignorance anymore. I told Patricia I was going to do something, not just because of what I'd witnessed, but because of what I felt gathering inside me. Responsibility, rage, resolve. That night, I lay awake, replaying every insult, every dismissal. Kids like him expected to accept their place in life. Realistic expectations, kindness turning into patronizing permission, not to aim high, systemic snuffing of aspiration. When dawn broke, I called Patricia gently. "I want to go to the school today," I said. She tried to refuse, fear, still belief in smallness, the notion that this was normal. She said things like, "These things happen." But I decided. Not this time. I needed to see the records. I needed proof. Patricia brought me copies, Tyler's grades, teacher comments, records of disciplinary reviews, letters from Principal Coleman. I read math, science, top marks, creativity praised, but also notes about needing realistic expectations and warnings about emotional investment, about comparing with other children. Subtle, insidious, dismissive. Later that morning, I requested a meeting with Principal Coleman at Prestige Academy. Her office was polished to perfection. Orders of textbooks, academic awards, portraits of board members. She rose when I walked in. "Mr. Hamilton, what an unexpected visit," she said, smile tight. I said nothing at first, let her greet me, assume I was here for a regular problem, but I already knew. My voice, when I spoke, was steady. I asked her about Tyler Washington. I asked why his project was thrown away. She hesitated, avoiding eye contact. She said it did not meet academic standards. Made of trash materials, she said. Presentation not professional. Image of the school to be considered. I responded, trash materials that worked perfectly. Why should image prevent recognition of genuine achievement? Why should polished surfaces matter more than evidence of real understanding, creativity? She shifted, clasped her hands. She admitted that yes, she believed children from working class, scholarship backgrounds have limitations, social, cultural, financial, that encouraging them to compete with kids who have been groomed from early age with resources was setting them up for disappointment, that it was kinder, in her view, to temper their expectations. Limiting them, she said, as though cage-making were care. My skin felt hot. My hands rested on the folder of Tyler's work. I held them there. I said quiet but firm. I disagree. Tyler Washington is going to represent this school at the state science fair. She said no, that entries have already been submitted, that there was no room, that tradition doesn't allow sudden changes. I looked at her, and something in me snapped. I said, I also have notes. I have emails. I have evidence. She raised an eyebrow. Her voice faltered. I told her I believed this was not just about Tyler. I believed this was symptomatic of something rotten at Prestige Academy, denying honor to bright children because of social background, telling them to aim lower to avoid discomfort. When you do that, you teach them to expect less. When you do that, you steal light. I left. Patricia stood waiting, her eyes wide, her voice soft. She asked, "Will anything change?" I said yes. I intend it to. We would document everything. We would reach out to a lawyer, not to win for revenge, but to shift boundaries, to make injustice visible. Then it got worse. Shortly after, calls came. Tyler expelled, suspended, accused of theft, electronic components found in his backpack that he didn't put there, the accusation that fed prejudice. Patricia's voice broke when she told me. I closed everything else out. It wasn't enough to be angry. It was time to act. We gathered witnesses, other kids, scholarship students, working-class families, stories of being told they don't belong here, of being held back, of being discredited. I reached out to a civil rights attorney, an investigative journalist, and dug through years of school records. I wanted the full picture. How often did the school lean in favor of affluent students? How often did scholarship students get blocked, pushed aside, expelled? I wanted the data nobody wanted to see. Meanwhile, I made sure Tyler would go back in class. I pressed for reinstatement pending investigation. I held his hand as we walked into school together. Coleman met us at reception. She tried the same script: school policy, image, fairness, but I had notes. I had documents. I had recording of remarks she made. I played them when needed. I did not shout. I spoke firmly. I said that under federal civil rights law, discrimination based on socioeconomic status combined with race is unlawful. That turning away bright kids because of their background is not protection, it's suppression. Other families started speaking. Mothers who had been quiet, students who had been silenced, teachers who had seen but stayed silent. The hush lifted. Shock, anger, shame, support, and then official action. Investigations, oversight boards stepping in. When I spoke in front of parents, reporters, officials, I introduced Tyler in all his brilliance, his project, his grades, his dreams. I unveiled the evidence, communications, where Principal Coleman told students like Jasmine to stay in their lane, where she prevented Marcus from entering art contests, bank statements showing donations from wealthy patrons who wanted their kids unchallenged, grading patterns favoring paying students, suspensions of scholarship children under dubious claims. Coleman tried to walk away, to dismiss the claims, to say she was merely maintaining standards. But minutes later, recordings played across phones in the courtyard, voices clear, unfiltered. Kids like him should accept their place. Too much kindness can hurt them, protecting them from disappointment. Each phrase echoed around polished hallways, into lawns, into homes. Tyler, clutching my hand, looked up. His voice trembled as he said, "Why did she say I was a thief? Why did she say kids like us aren't worthy?" The crowd hushed. The mothers looked down. Teachers shifted. Reporters leaned in. And I told them, because power fears what it can't tame. Because some people believe expectations are dangerous if you aren't born elite. But that lie ends here. Not just for Tyler, for Jasmine, Marcus, all those whose light was dimmed because someone else believed darkness was safer for them. That day, Prestige Academy was shaken. Legal actions followed. licenses threatened. The school had to answer. The community demanded accountability. In that crowd, Patricia stood tall. Tyler wiped his nose. His uniform cleaned up, but his eyes still glimmering with hurt and hope. Months later, Tyler stood on stage at the state science fair. His project, solar energy device made affordable for poor households, won first place. Scholarship offers poured in. Universities writing letters before high school even ended. When he stepped forward to accept the trophy, he said, "This is for Mom, who worked nights so I could learn, and for Mr. Hamilton, who showed me my dreams are bigger than what people believe I deserve." The applause was thunderous. Patricia wept. I watched him beam. And I knew. Justice wasn't just about punishing one principal. It was about opening a door that too often stays locked. What the principal didn't know was that her arrogance, her underestimation, had built the case for her own unraveling. What she didn't expect was that I wouldn't just demand change, I'd make it irreversible. Foundation scholarships for working-class kids, mentorship programs, public exposure, legal precedent, and that hundreds of children in similar cages of lowered expectations would soon find their voices. In the end, I saw something I hadn't seen before: the true cost of silence. When someone in power whispers that someone else belongs somewhere smaller. When prejudice is dressed up in kind words and realistic expectations. When teachers, principals, system caretakers believe they know the limits of someone else's dreams. That belief wounds worse than dirt on skin, worse than tears on cheeks. It crushes possibility. But here's the thing. Possibility doesn't die easily if someone insists on witnessing it. Tyler insisted. Patricia insisted. I insisted. People spoke. Evidence showed. The world forced itself to see. And when it did, it had to respond. So, if you believe that no child should ever be told, "That's not for you," or "You don't belong," I invite you to stand up. Not just for one story like Tyler's, but for all the stories that haven't yet been told. Because injustice hidden in silence is just a ghost until someone shines light. Share this. Talk about what you see, what you know. Support the children fighting, the parents afraid. Let's not let dreams be trashed like yesterday's garbage. Let's show that greatness doesn't ask permission. Because Tyler is proof that you can build something bright even with scraps, and that those scraps can be change.